Hon.Asiedu Nketia is the NDC General Secretary. He joins us this morning, as well as Dr. Matthew Opoku-Prempeh, MP for Menchia South constituency and a member of the New Patriotic Party. We're going to try and understand this. This is a bereavement that cannot be let to pass without some clarity being brought to the issue. We have to bear in mind this is a very important and delicate area of our country, and so we will make sure that our conversation remains decorous, and so that we don't end up inflaming passions unnecessarily. We're going to talk about it, though, in detail with our two guests. Right after surprise, our big story is all to do with the killing of Adams Mahama, the regional chairman for the NPP in the Upper East region. He was killed in an acid attack that took place on Wednesday night. We're joined by our guest, Dr. Matthew Opoku-Prempeh, MP for Menchia South constituency and a member of the NPP, and of course Mr. Hon.Asiedu Nketia, General Mosquito, as he's known, General Secretary of the National Democratic Congress. Gentlemen, good morning, and thank you for joining us.
Good morning. You are welcome.
Good morning. Good morning to your listeners.
Yeah. So, I mean, clearly a tragic occurrence, this killing. And in fact, I called it an assassination this morning because it is a political figure who has been killed. So, yes, this assassination of the regional chairman of the NPP. I want to start with the latest development, what we heard last night, that the NPP headquarters had been taken over by these individuals, this private security force known as the Invisible Force. We heard of them the first time in last year's fracas that occurred at the NPP headquarters when machetes were drawn and all of that. We heard of this Invisible Force being embroiled in that matter. And again, we hear of them today, assuming control of the party's headquarters and saying that they would deny access to certain individuals, particularly the chairman and the general secretary. In some cases, this would be the textbook definition of a coup. I need to ask you, Dr. Opoku-Prempeh, is that what has happened? Has the management or the leadership of your party been usurped by an invisible force?
Definitely not. I don't think anybody can counter any group in this country that would decide to take the law into their own hands. I would definitely not support that. Our sub-region, our ECOWAS area, happens to be flooded with small arms. And any group that purports to act on their own, not under the auspices of a national state security apparatus, not regulated, not licensed and not certified, is a dangerous threat to the security of that region or that country. And like I said, ECOWAS is our region, West Africa region, is a very volatile area. We've seen the havoc caused by a group that is so deep within the landmarks of West Africa, Boko Haram, that started as an offshoot of a protectionist group protecting a political appointee or a political leader. And look at what has happened. It has devastated Nigeria, and it hasn't even, the threat has not been succumbed or subdued. So I won't support any grouping that is not under the control of the state, in the sense that either not licensed or approved.
But they currently have control of your headquarters, do they not?
I have not been to my headquarters. I don't know what you mean by have control. Whether control means somebody guarding the gates, or whether control means they are issuing official edicts. I don't really know what you mean by
control. Well, you heard what this Ahmed individual, a member of the Invisible Force, said.
Every person can speak his mind. That is the point about democracy. That phrase at the nets, at the edges, phrase at the edges, because I cannot limit his right to speak, but he doesn't represent my party. Neither does he represent me.
Well, John News reported.
Yes, I think if you play the whole tape, which I've listened to,
yes,
He will tell you they are volunteers. They have a group that probably have sympathies towards my political affiliation, and they have decided to do that. It doesn't mean somebody has organized them. Not at all.
So it's a disorganized activity.
It's a group of people, able-bodied Ghanaians, who have decided to go to the party office and, not understanding probably issues that are arising, have taken a certain line that we all might not necessarily agree with.
We're going to come to the meat of the issue now, and I'm going to actually start from the outside and ask Mr. Hon.Asiedu Nketia, the General Secretary of the NDC. Now, I know the party has issued a statement.
Sure.
We haven't heard a statement from the government or the president or any such, but we have heard a statement from the party. This occurrence in the Upper East region is of concern. Now, you have often described your opponents, the NPP, as a disorganized party. Do you feel as if you're being vindicated by what has happened now?
Well, thank you very much, and good morning to your listeners. I think I'm not in the mood to politicize issues at this stage. Our statement is very, very clear that what has happened is a dent on the image of Ghana as a country. And if not checked, can develop into something that we will all live to regret about. And on that score, I want to associate myself with the views expressed by my colleague Matthew, that Boko Haram developed just like this. And they were allowed to operate, and I want to believe that the security services also allowed it as an internal issue, internal political issue. And I don't know, for some reason, the security services in the sub-region, they always go slow when things happen which they see some political tint on. And so that is something that needs to be checked. And I'm happy that all the statements I have heard from the NPP side are all calling on the security services to do a professional work and let us identify the criminals and deal with them so that we can exorcise, if you like, this type of behavior from our body politic. And so, and we also advise the NPP leadership to take control of the party and then instill discipline to quell this type of seeming lawlessness that is growing within the party. And I have seen that since the Tamale Congress, in fact, during the Tamale Congress of the NPP, something happened. They all overlooked it. There was a group that was holding a vigil with a brass band of sort, and then some two people riding a motorbike just rode through and shot through that crowd. When the issue came up, their communicators were quick to blame NDC. So nothing got done. The perpetrators were never apprehended, and we have never heard about that. I'm not sure internally too they took any action to investigate or to punish whoever was responsible. Then it didn't end there. When the new leadership took office, there was something we were made to believe to be a change of guard. And then that was the first time we heard about this invisible force, and there were machetes drawn, some people were hurt, and so on. Again, we did not hear any punitive action being taken either from their party structure or from the national security apparatus, because as I've already alluded to, the police and the security services seem to always want to let sleeping dogs lie when matters come, and they tend to have some political coloration. And then so it has devolved into a certain pattern where whenever any major decision is taken by MPP, you see one group or the other blaming the other group, and then the boys are quick to invade party office. And so it ended up in this last week's attack on their national chairman and the general secretary, who were rescued by the security services again. I think that one is too recent for us to blame the police. But the fact still remains that we did not see any visible action to try to apprehend the perpetrators and deal with them. And then this is the last stage. Even after this murder, there were reprisal attacks also. So where are we going, and where is this thing leading to? That is how our statement called on the leadership of the party. At this stage, we have cautioned that we should be very circumspect in discussing this issue, particularly when you soil the atmosphere by baseless blames and conclusions. Then it tends to prejudice the work of the police, even when they end up getting the evidence which run contrary to perceptions that have been created already because of some of these baseless arguments. They feel very weak to want to come out to say something that runs counter to the common perceptions. So we should allow them to do their work. We should talk to the party people who are understandably angry that their reaction may end up even destroying evidence on the ground, so that we can all find solutions to this and rid our body politics of this type of conduct.
I want to ask you about these baseless claims and accusations that you're talking about. Let's be fair. Violence is not new to politics in Ghana. The NDC have had their own, experiences with people, conducting acts of violence, at party events and so forth. So macho men is certainly not an NPP invention. And in these instances, I'm also curious to learn at which point the police have sanctioned any NDC macho men, following any of these activity. I mean, I'm trying to understand the basis on which you give this advice to the NPP. I mean, have you...
You are talking about... you wanted my comment on the baseless accusations that...
Yes, I'm asking whether or not, you advising the leadership of the NPP to take control of the party. Is that not perhaps, also some sort of baseless blaming of the leadership for what has happened, since you must have experience of, uncontrolled activity by people who are not necessarily part of your party's organized structure?
My brother, I'm not here to do politics, and I'm not here to engage in equalization and other things. But we cannot sweep under the carpet the fact that what is happening in MPP is not amusing to majority of MPP members. You yourself told us about volunteers who have gone to the party and so on. They are hurt. They want to see their party united behind their flag bearer, and so that they can pursue their programs. So they are frustrated that that is not happening, and that is the reaction you get from the ordinary party members. So if we continue hiding our heads in the sand, thinking that, oh, this is normal political activity, it can happen in any other party, then I'm sorry, we are not dealing with the issues. Why is it that individuals in the party at the various levels are issuing statements condemning this. Why is there reprisal attacks and so on? So it is telling you that if they are not careful, rule of law will break down in the internal affairs of the party, and that is dangerous for all of us, not even MPP alone. If there's an organization and they cannot stick to their rules, then it generates a problem. And so I think the beginning point is for them to insist on rule of law within their party. Rule of their party constitution. From outside, I see that there appears to be rule of personalities within MPP at this stage. They should all come together and move away from that one, and then insist that the constitution be obeyed. Whoever else gets gone. And I think that will be a very good beginning.
Okay, we're going to come to Dr. Opoku Prempeh for some more insights on how this killing has affected the party. But first, I want to bring in on the phone Emmanuel Sowate. He's a security analyst. Oh, actually, I think we've lost Mr. Sowate's line, but we'll get him back on just for an analysis of what is happening in that part of the country and how this kind of activity perhaps needs to be managed to avoid any further implications. But I noticed you shake your head a few times while you were listening to what Mr. Asiedu Nketia was saying. What he's calling for is some order. Is there anything wrong with that?
Not on the face of it. It is very, very easy to kick somebody who is down. And I am really, really down. I shed a tear because I saw the Upper East Regional Chairman, a friend. He actually came all the way to discuss an issue with me concerning what we wanted me to do in Upper East. He spoke to me even on a personal matter about his transport business, and he wanted some help in Kumasi. He's an affable person who's tragically lost his life. But I will not sit here, even though I support what my senior brother has said in Toto.
And senior MP.
And senior colleague. To support his, to give me a below the belt jab on political tolerance from General Asiedu Nketia. It's really, really low.
Why do you think so?
I wish I could go into my element. If there was anything called intolerance introduced into the body politic since 1979, it is from no other than this group of people. They've brought up a generation of intolerance in this country, with total disrespect to the elderly, non-acceptance of people who defy their opinion, the culture of impunity. Look, my brother, I don't support a single thing that has happened in Upper East. I feel that those who have been arrested, if found guilty, should be used as an example. I want to see what has happened in Upper East as a watershed moment in our political discourse in this country. We cannot continue. We cannot allow difference of opinions to degenerate into threats of people's personal life, in maiming and disabling people. Look, the first political assassination that happened under the 1992 Constitution happened to a regional chairman. He was smoked to death. The MDC had to organize themselves to try and ship him abroad, and I think he died around being transferred abroad to Germany or somewhere like that. He was a Western regional chairman of a political party. A DC was killed. The police has ignored it in Nkwanta. There were live shots of people shooting into a crowd in Chiriponi. Nobody has done anything about it. People drove over into a crowd in Akwetia. Nothing happened. MPs were stoned. The former general secretary of the party was chased out of a police station in Akwetia. In Atiwa, people who ran over with their vehicles over human beings as if they were fodder. Nothing happened. In my own constituency, Menchia, by name, he, my senior brother, had to call to national security. He doesn't know that I know. To caution them that, look, let not this political intolerance continue. What is happening in Asia has a potential of erupting into something in Ghana. He went to national security. He doesn't know that I know. So I know how he abhors intolerance that degenerates. But I'm also aware that he led when he felt being cheated. He led a mob, the Electoral Commission. But I cannot for one moment do equivalencies here. Like he just said, the whole regional organizer of the NDC has been butchered. He might claim, when you listen to the woman, he says there's a political enemies. You read the reportage because he's different with other political elements in the Western region. That is not what I'm here to talk about. I'm here to say that let's use this as a watershed moment. Between myself and Honorable Muntaka, who belongs to this party, we have to develop a collegiality, because we realized that there were elements who hide behind politics to cause distraction and mayhem in various constituencies. So when Muntaka hears anything, he would first call me. When I hear it, I'll call him. And it has virtually abated within our constituencies. Political intolerance is not only the violence, it's a difference of opinion. We've had the general come on air against some of his own executives who resorted to press conferences, and he advised them, like I want to advise my executives, that let's go back to the drawing board and know how political parties are formed and what purpose they are formed for. I wish
that's a bit different from they must resign, though, isn't it?
No. It's a degree. You know what he said that I loved? It starts small and it escalates. Ours might have escalated to the point that somebody has lost his life now, but it doesn't mean it hasn't existed. Intolerance against national executives of a party. The worst incident that ever happened in Koforidua at the party congress, when even people had to break away from a new party. I don't understand why, for that matter, I cannot disagree with my senior brother and still not be on good terms with him. He calls me when issues happen. He's here. He calls me. I'm not saying he can because he's here or not. For no matter what we think about politics, we are first human beings, and the life of a human being, whatever it is, must be held sacrosanct. Nobody has a right. Why is it that since 1992 no president has been able to sign the orders for execution of criminals who have been committed to execution or something? 1992. Because taking the life of a human being is not worth, no matter what the person has done. So I believe that let's transform this situation into a watershed moment in this country, where we say never again would either Azoka or Kandahar or Invisible Force or whatever name they perpetrate or call themselves, these boys, ever again happen. But I want to end by saying that this culture has been grown, fed, watered by the inaction of the state security agencies.
Okay, there's so much more to talk about. We need to understand what is going to become of Paul Afoko and Kwabena Agyapong, who seem to be embroiled in this confusion that is ensuing after the killing of the regional chairman. Also, I'd love to know what Asiedu Nketia would do if he were in the shoes of the way in which this man was attacked, with acid, and the fact that this could happen to anyone. And for all intents and purposes, this attack was because of a difference in opinion. I want to put to you this idea of our collective responsibility for what has happened. As leaders, do you feel that sometimes it's easy to lose sight of how influential you are on the grassroots members of your movement, and how well, how people can take your words and interpret them into a call to violence? Should leaders take responsibility when things like this happen? And should it only be the party involved, the NPP, that should be taking responsibility for this? Or are we all in some way to blame for this culture that is emerging?
Your first question about our impression about how seriously party followers take our word. We are not under any illusions at all. And that is why we are careful when we are making public pronouncements. And that is why when things happen and they appear to be out of sync with the norms of the party, they want to hear leadership. They want to see action from leadership. And that is the basis of our call for action from the leadership of MPP to deal with this particular problem and prevent it from escalating. So, as mass organizations, it is difficult to prevent this type of things generally. There will be some amount of commotion, some amount of differences, and so on. But they will always look at leadership and to see which type of actions are likely to be condoned by leadership. And then it gives a green light for them to move in that direction. If they know that leadership frowns on certain type of actions, then they would not go into that direction unless they are out to challenge that type of leadership. So that is the general principle. So there is no magic in applying when you want to maintain peace in an organization. The only magic is that you all subscribe to the same rules and laws. And when anybody breaches them, you don't look at where that person belongs to. By all means, shades of opinion exist in every big organization, and there will be differences. Indeed, the fuel for democracy is differences in opinion. So, but there is a tendency for these differences in opinion to be expressed in many ways that are not useful. When it is allowed to degenerate to that point, then you are no longer operating a democracy. So that is why I'm saying that it is leadership, and leadership. And the way leadership reacts to situations, that gives signals for the conduct of the followers in future situations. And so what has happened, I guess yesterday somebody was asking me if I were in the shoes of my colleague,
He just did.
I did today.
He repeated it this way. What would I do?
Would you resign?
No, I'll if you like, rise above my heart. I mean, when things come to this level, we must use our heads more than our hearts. And I am extending this advice also to all the leaders. Because where you are now, this call for resignation of Nanado and another call for resignation of these party people, it is not on. That will not be the solution. The solution is that those leaders should realize that they didn't put themselves in that group. It is somebody who put all of them there. You understand? So whether you are opponents, enemies, or whatever, your party, the foot soldiers, have decided to put you there and are asking you to work together. So that is the point at which you must rise above your personal feelings, then use your head and say, we are in together. So I'm sure if there were no MPP, the paths of maybe Afuku or Kwabena Japan or Nanado may not cross at all in society. But it is because of MPP that they brought them together. You understand? So after every Congress, what you need to do as leadership is that look at everybody who has been elected Forget about what happened in the campaigns here and there. Forget about what the history of your relationship has been, and then rise to the realization that, look, we didn't come here by ourselves. We were put here by the delegates. So the delegates are wiser, and they know the reason why they chose Nana Addo as the leader. They know the reason why they chose Paul Afoko as the national chairman, and they know the reason why they chose Kwabena Japan as the general secretary.
But are they not the same people who are now calling for them to resign? Are they not these same rank and file people who put them there? Who are now
all the MPP, millions of MPP people in Ghana who are doing it.
No, but
those who have access to the press, those who are in the capitals. Those are
founding members.
Those are the ones you will be hearing. You understand? And I don't think that it is appropriate for founding members at this stage to be speaking the way they are speaking. So what is the basis? If one founding member says it is the national leadership, or Kwabena Japan and Paul Afoko who should resign, another founding member says it is Nana Addo who should resign, what will be the basis?
I'm sorry to do this. I'm sorry to do this. I'm not allowed any flexibility in it at all, but immediately I have to quickly remind everybody that today's agenda is brought to you by Guarantee Trust Bank. Wouldn't you rather bank with us? And of course, Guarantee Trust Bank has great and exciting news for everyone. They've introduced the new GT mobile service. You dial *714*737# and it allows you to access your account details and top up airtime on all networks. It's a wonderful service. Open an account with GT Bank and enjoy it. Call 0302-611-560 for more information. It's a delightful way to top up credit with GT Mobile. We're talking to Hon.Asiedu Nketia and Dr. Matthew Opoku Prempeh. We're breaking down this aftermath of the assassination of Adams.
Your first question about our impression about how seriously party followers take our word. We are not under any illusions at all. And that is why we are careful when we are making public pronouncements. And that is why when things happen and they appear to be out of sync with the norms of the party, they want to hear leadership. They want to see action from leadership. And that is the basis of our call for action from the leadership of MPP to deal with this particular problem and prevent it from escalating. So, as mass organizations, it is difficult to prevent this type of things generally. There will be some amount of commotion, some amount of differences, and so on. But they will always look at leadership and to see which type of actions are likely to be condoned by leadership. And then it gives a green light for them to move in that direction. If they know that leadership frowns on certain type of actions, then they would not go into that direction unless they are out to challenge that type of leadership. So that is the general principle. So there is no magic in applying when you want to maintain peace in an organization. The only magic is that you all subscribe to the same rules and laws. And when anybody breaches them, you don't look at where that person belongs to. By all means, shades of opinion exist in every big organization, and there will be differences. Indeed, the fuel for democracy is differences in opinion. So, but there is a tendency for these differences in opinion to be expressed in many ways that are not useful. When it is allowed to degenerate to that point, then you are no longer operating a democracy. So that is why I'm saying that it is leadership, and leadership. And the way leadership reacts to situations that give signals for the conduct of the followers in future situations. And so what has happened, I guess yesterday somebody was asking me if I were in the shoes of my colleague,
He just did.
I did today. Yes.
He repeated it this morning. What would I do?
Would you resign?
No, I'll if you like, rise above my heart. I mean, when things come to this level, we must use our heads more than our hearts. And I am extending this advice also to all the leaders. Because where you are now, this call for resignation of Nanado and another call for resignation of these party people, it is not on. That will not be the solution. The solution is that those leaders should realize that they didn't put themselves in that group. It is somebody who put all of them there. You understand? So whether you are opponents, enemies, or whatever, your party, the foot soldiers, have decided to put you there and are asking you to work together. So that is the point at which you must rise above your personal feelings, then use your head and say, we are in together. So I'm sure if there were no MPP, the paths of maybe Afuku or Kwabena Japan or Nanado may not cross at all in society. But it is because of MPP that they brought them together. You understand? So after every Congress, what you need to do as leadership is that look at everybody who has been elected. Forget about what happened in the campaigns here and there. Forget about what the history of your relationship has been, and then rise to the realization that, look, we didn't come here by ourselves. We were put here by the delegates. So the delegates are wiser, and they know the reason why they chose Nanado as the leader. They know the reason why they chose Paul Afoko as the national chairman, and they know the reason why they chose Kwabena Japan as the general secretary.
But are they not the same people who are now calling for them to resign? Are they not these same rank and file people who put them there who are now asking
all the MPP? Millions of MPP people in Ghana who are doing it.
No, but
those who have access to the press, those who are in the capitals, those are
founding members.
Those are the ones you will be hearing. You understand? And I don't think that it is appropriate for founding members at this stage to be speaking the way they are speaking. What is the basis? If one founding member says it is the national leadership, Kwabena Japan and Paul Afoko who should resign. Another founding member says it is Nanado who should resign. What will be the basis? You understand?
I'm sorry to do this. I'm sorry to do this. I'm not allowed any flexibility in it at all. But immediately, I have to quickly remind everybody that today's agenda is brought to you by Guarantee Trust Bank. Wouldn't you rather bank with us? And of course, Guarantee Trust Bank has great and exciting news for everyone. They've introduced the new GT mobile service. You dial *714*737# and it allows you to access your account details and top up airtime on all networks. It's a wonderful service. Open an account with GT Bank and enjoy it. Call 0302-611-560 for more information. It's a delightful way to top up credit with GT Mobile. We're talking to Hon.Asiedu Nketia and Dr. Matthew Opoku Prempeh. We're breaking down this aftermath of the assassination of Adams Mahama in the Upper East region. He died yesterday following an acid attack. There's so much more to talk about. The fate of Paul Afoko and Kwabena Japan, we'll explore that. We'll also talk about how these people, these foot soldiers who cause all this trouble, how do they even end up in the party? How do they get recruited? Can we not see the aftermath of the murder of Adam Mahama, the Upper East Regional Chairman of the NPP. Right then, we're speaking to Dr. Matthew Opoku Prempeh and Mr. Hon.Asiedu Nketia. Now, I've just cited this email. It's rather strange. It's sent by International SOS to their members in Ghana, saying that members in the capital, Accra, should avoid the vicinity of the opposition NPP offices and the surrounding Asylum Down area due to the potential for unrest following the death of a party leader on the 21st of May. The Upper East Regional Chairman, Adam Mahama, died following an acid attack on the previous day by unknown assailants. And then it lists areas to be avoided: Asylum Down area of Accra, as well as Kwame Nkrumah Circle. And they are to leave an area at the first site of unrest and relocate to a secure location until the situation has stabilized. So clearly some international attention, not of the preferred kind, but certainly attention being drawn to this this development. And of course, the thuggery that has, surrounded this event, both before and after, leaves so much to be desired. It's been, deplored and condemned by everybody, which is good to hear. But we wonder how these things happen. As a party, surely you're not interested in having people of this nature in your rank and file. But how do they end up there? I want to ask Dr. Opoku Prempeh about this.
Thank you. I think in the year 2009, the IPU, which is the International Parliamentary Union, dedicated that year to democracy and political tolerance. And then after their discussions and seminars and things, realized that one of the key principles about democracy is tolerance, political tolerance, respect and accepting as an individual, as a political party, that differences of opinion is nothing rather than differences of opinion that enhances democracy. So it charged all the political parties to do things. One was to develop internally democratic processes where issues are discussed openly, and the consensus is arrived at or decisions are made. The other was to follow procedure rigorously, especially when it's leading to suspension or punishing of another who has done. One was also to develop a code of conduct where members would abide by, and another was to have inter-party dialogue. I mentioned what I've evolved with Muntaka. General Secretary said something in the wake of this incident that he was to speak to his brother Kobna Ejapon and others. I remember previously when something happened, he was a General Secretary of the NDC, and he came to Parliament to meet me and I said, go to the General Secretary. He said, no, because probably I was a member of the IPAC at that time. Let's all decide and give us a lawyer. And it happened. Yeah. It happened when we were going to it was one of the by-elections that we all didn't go. We all didn't go. So those are the things that foster democracy, tolerance, respect. If I don't respect him as a human being first, I don't accept him that he's a human being who's entitled to his civic liberties or basic rights like I am, I would rather see him as anything he says is stupid, foolish, bad, right? And that I should attack his person. That is not the basis of democracy. Democracy is not a God-given thing. People should know. It is man's way of administering our own activities, where you don't only, it is not a majority rule. It is respecting the minority's opinions and letting it germinate. Because you might be the majority on an issue, but find yourself in the minority on another issue. So it is a respect of minority opinion that allows democracy to foster. As individuals, we should see, like you said, ourselves as role models. Everything we do, our engagement, dialogue and consensus building should be the order of the day. Unfortunately, going through an electoral process, you have to probably win by polarization. But when you come to governance, you can only govern with collaboration and cooperation. No matter your majority, you cannot govern based upon only that. So there are things that we have to do. As to we be political parties, open arms. Somebody said even the cemetery is accepting more people. How much political parties? And there's nothing like somebody coming into your political party, you would know a priori that the person is a thug or not. Because the person has his own, like he said, our paths might ever have crossed, but political party and some ideal we are aspiring to might have brought us together. It doesn't mean that if I have a shady past, I don't still have a shady past. Right? And the political parties are not, by definition, set up to investigate people's paths. That is why we have given certain aspects of our life to state apparatus. And that is why one thing we have not been able to say, but if you've listened to the general speak, if you listen to other people, even when I was talking, why hasn't the security establishment been responsible? I agree with you when you say political parties should, because the general had already said leadership, and I believe leadership matters. But what about if it's leadership that is perpetuating these things? What about if it's ineffective leadership? You see, there's a huge difference between being an authority figure, like a general secretary of a political party or a chairman of a political, and being a leader. Don't never think those things are the same.
Is that the case in the NPP today?
Not necessarily. Because you find out there's a problem, it doesn't mean that's what's happening. There's an issue that has come up. Just last week, there were parties in this country that in different parts of the country were burning down their offices. Does it mean leadership have failed? No. But it is a process that we have to continuously and rigorously work towards. Like I said when I began, when General got elected again from Turkey, there were frayed edges. Somebody came out doing press conferences he didn't know about. But look at the way he came out. Said, if it's a happened because we haven't done our orientation course. Once we finish our orientation course, everybody will fall into line. Yeah. I'm not sure he liked what had happened. Listen to another thing he said. He came from China, and at that time, a certain issue had hit the ceiling in Ethiopia that involved the leader of the land. And you know what he said? He said, Ethiopia is a defeating thing about democracy. If in a democracy somebody says Ethiopia, he wanted to shift the blame on the NPP, which I agree perfectly. We should allow that. But he also made a point that it didn't get lost on me, was the fact that in a democracy you can't say Ethiopia. And so his party people should stop saying that, because it will have undermined the whole purpose of democracy. If leaders, no matter what they are doing, if they come out with things that would enhance democracy, we should support. We should try and do away with this thuggery. But we need the efforts of everybody. We need the efforts of those who are in government. We need the efforts of security services. Because, like, it has happened to me. Somebody was shot in my constituency. I don't know how he reported it. He reported it badly, as if I had, even though I was not physically present at that area. The police arrested everybody involved. What has happened? What has happened? When they realized that it was not associated with any politician, they thought it was me because they had done press conference. When they read the statement of the witnesses, they said, these two people, they have been fighting in the last 7 years, predating even when I went into politics. And it was something that testimonies were being given that they were thugs who were fighting. And if there are two thugs in a neighborhood who are fighting for theft, whether it is to do with illegal business or anything, one will go and join NDC, one will go and join NPP. Because I don't like this guy, I'm fighting with him, and he's a member, sympathizer of NPP. They would also go somewhere.
Well, Kojo, my fear is this, that as a Ghanaian, you can't stop people from joining party politics for their own selfish reasons. But do the parties themselves lend themselves to giving these people up when you know they're in your midst?
What? Who gives up what?
Well, if you would look at all the incidents from history that you mentioned, the manhandling at the conference in Koforidua, all the people were acting on behalf of people, whether explicitly ordered to do so or they thinking that by doing so they help a cause. No one has said, I saw this person do this, let's bring him to book.
I would recommend, it's very, very easy, as said, when you are doing this this way. But I'm sure in your organizations, in your own organization, a reporter might go out and do something and you don't necessarily give him up in the way you are giving. I'll recommend a book to everybody to read, Why Nations Fail. and you would realize that the history, the data is overwhelming. It's about institutions. Institutions that allow freedom of expression, and institutions that bring people to book when they are not supposed to. Right? That a politician can rise to his own leader and say, leader, what you have done is wrong. Please leave. Our democracy hasn't gotten there yet. I'm telling you. So we need state institutions to punish perpetrators of crime.
But how do they punish them if they're not identified?
All of them, they arrest them. Ask General.
And don't they need evidence in order to prosecute them successfully?
They have to gather it, and I think you can't blame a political party necessarily. You can't blame a leader of a political party necessarily.
I have to ask you: Are you suggesting that if, as a political leader of a political party, if you know that a member of your party has committed a crime, they've been arrested, and you have evidence that can help the police prosecute them because they belong to your party, you would think twice before you give it?
Just now, sitting here, before I switch my phone off, certain people have put up statements on their Facebook wall and things about this. And a member is encouraging that we have to draw police's attention to that. That is not the issue of saying that we should shield. No, that is not that. I said the state security apparatus must be responsible. That is why I said this is a watershed moment. Forget about what probably has passed. Let's do those culprits who have been arrested. Forensic team said we should see a speedy punishment of the perpetrators. Acid attack. It happened in the last elections. Somebody was nearly blinded, had to be flown to Germany. Recently on air, people who did it have come out to speak. What has the police done? That is what that culture of impunity is aided and festered by the inaction of the security services.
I want to bring Mr. Asiedu Nketia into this because, of course, the fate of Paul Afoko and Kwabena Japan is being brought into question. Is that even justified? I mean, you've already said that resigning is not the way forward, but should they not be taking some responsibility for what has happened?
It is a collective responsibility of the leadership of NPP. I don't see it as a responsibility on two persons. It's a collective responsibility. Because beyond, I don't know exactly what their constitution provides, but in our constitution, the leader of the party is the flag bearer when he has been elected, and all others work under him. When we are in government, it is the president of the republic who is the leader of the party, and then all the others are functionaries. So it may be out of place to be apportioning blame at this stage. I think that it is a failure of that collective leadership. And I'm not saying, I'm not indicting their competence or something that is different. What I'm saying is that there is a tendency for individual leaders to listen to their hearts more than their minds.
In times like this.
In times like this. So you will be sticking to your emotions, and each of them will be sticking to their emotions. If they do that, they will not have a solution to this problem. So the biggest battle is not the one which you wage to conquer your enemy. The biggest battle is the one which you wage to conquer yourself. That is your feelings and other things. Rise above them and apply more logic to be able to deal with a situation. That is that. But I disagree with my colleague when he says that security services are to blame on this matter.
Not on this matter.
Or on the violence and non-prosecution and so on. I am saying that still the leadership of the political parties must share in that blame. Go and ask the police capos that when matters of this nature happen, how many highly placed politicians don't call them to want to go slow on some of these matters. And then you come public and say that we condemn this, we condemn that, we condemn this, and then behind the scenes "Oh, Chief, can you do something about this? Can you do something about that?" And it is not limited to politicians. It happens to chiefs. It happens to, the faith groups and other things. So that tendency on the part of Ghanaians to want to put their sympathy on the accused rather than the victim. That is one of the biggest challenges that is facing our democracy. And we have to, you give us 2 weeks, 3 weeks after this incident, after burial, after funeral, after everybody.
When everything is dead.
Then people will begin saying that, "Oh, the man who has been arrested, we pity him. Can we do something about it? Let sleeping dogs lie."
And talk to somebody.
And that is where big men begin talking to
Big men.
the police and the security services. You understand? And unfortunately, yes,
It's true.
The meddlesome big men.
Yes. So that is one of the things. And I'm saying that, look, we in the leadership of political parties cannot escape blame on this matter also, because some philosopher has said, I don't know whether it is Edmund Burke or John Locke or somebody, who said that even though the instinct of gregariousness is innate in the human being, the first person who organized society must be congratulated, because human nature, when perfected, becomes the best of animals, but when separated from law and order, becomes the worst of animals. So these groups, they are not from anywhere. They are all from the political parties. I mean, are we not the same people who have allowed criminals, convicted criminals, to vote? So if they are voting, are they not voting for political parties? So we must know that all the criminals, all the murderers, and all the other deviants in society will find themselves in the various political parties. So it depends upon how you govern that political party to ensure that these tendencies must be suppressed, the undesirable tendencies must be suppressed in the party, and then the desirable ones will emerge. That is what makes the difference.
Mr. Asiedu Nketia, I want to thank you so much for joining us this morning and sharing your thoughts. General Secretary of the National Democratic Congress, you've certainly graced us with your presence. I also want to extend my thanks to Dr. Matthew Opoku Prempeh, MP for Menchia South constituency and a member of the NPP, also for your gracious expenditure of time with us this morning. We've learned a lot from this conversation.
You have to thank your listeners for listening to us.
Always. We are indebted to them forever. And very soon we're going to be bringing you a live update of a live broadcast of President Mahama's speech at Oxford. That's coming at you very shortly.